Joke characters in fighting games are an archetype almost as old as the entire genre itself. I mean, from Dan of Street Fighter, one of the OGs, to Mocap in Mortal Kombat, to Gon in Tekken, to Hercule in almost any Dragon Ball fighting game. Again, just trying to cover all bases for people who aren't familiar with fighting games. This is a character that's usually intentionally underkitted or intentionally has very goofy moves and usually isn't meant to be the best. They're put in there usually for humorous reasons, and again, they can excel in these fields a lot of the time. I know Dan recently was a little more kitted out in his more recent appearances. I know my brother has frequently played him in the Street Fighter games and does put the work in. So you can be good as these characters, but more often than not, they are kind of put in, well, as a joke. And with the recent advent of Marvel Tōkon, I did want to go ahead and kind of look into which joke character might end up making the cut. So this is assuming that there's only going to be one joke character in the game. And just to let you guys know, running ahead of this, I don't think Deadpool counts as a joke character at this point. Even going back to Marvel vs. Capcom 3 in his first appearance in the series, he was not treated as a joke at that time. Again, he did do the standard Deadpool stuff. He did do fourth wall breaks. He did mess around and taunt the player and everything, and taunt the people that he was fighting constantly. But I don't think that he falls under that net of a joke character anymore. People do take him seriously. They do know that he can fight, that he can show up, that he does have weapons that he can utilize, and he can do serious damage. So he doesn't fall into that archetype anymore, I think, of, you know, people like Dan or people like Gon or Hercule, who, again, are not as strong as others in their verse, and that's usually where the whole joke character thing comes from. Either that or, again, just a crazy, zany fighting style. And unfortunately, I don't think Deadpool falls under that umbrella anymore, man. And again, I think that's for the best. I don't think Deadpool should be relegated to the joke character. I think, again, he does have really good skills. He does have some really serious comic lines as well. He does have some really good runs. So I think it's merited that he no longer falls into that category. But with that being said, I did want to run through a couple different options for who might end up taking that joke character spot. And again, this is assuming they put one in, and I am only going to be saying that they'll probably end up putting one in. I think multiple joke characters end up not making it as funny anymore if an entire roster, or like 2-3 DLCs down the line, you get nothing but joke characters. I don't think people are going to really enjoy that, but I think one will make it in. And starting off with our first, and I think most likely option, Howard the Duck. So I am going to give a brief run through for these characters, not a full rundown, just again so I can give you a brief introduction to them, what they might play like. Howard the Duck is pretty much a private eye. Did start out as a joke character, did get some more serious runs down the line. I believe that's his main thing, is a private eye. He does kind of just stumble into other runs randomly. He has teamed up with various Marvel heroes, but I think I could really see this guy playing similar to Phoenix Wright in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, kind of just stumbling around the battlefield, looking for different pieces to add to his moveset, looking for things that kind of help him activate a different stance or something along those lines, maybe give him a powered up state. But I would honestly have him looking for either evidence, since that does kind of play into this whole detective private eye thing, or discarded items from the Collector. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has already tied Howard the Duck with the Collector, so I think that connection wouldn't be super outlandish, and I think they have interacted a couple times post that whole thing in the MCU, so I think that would also be a really fun way to incorporate maybe characters who aren't going to make it in. Maybe he could find Shocker's gauntlets on the ground or something like that, since I don't think he's going to make it in. So I think that would be a really fun way to include a lot of other characters that might not make the cut. And again, since he is a joke character, you could have him, you know, spewing out all these random voice lines. He does have this thing called Quack Fu that it's pretty much just Kung Fu. So maybe that could be like a counter, or maybe they could use that as a stance for when he's up closer, when he does want to finally close the distance on somebody, when he's not using those ranged items that he's finding on the ground. But that's just a really fun way to take Howard the Duck. I think it would be really interesting to see him in the game as well. I don't think he's had a lot of shine on him in a more serious light as of late, so I think, again, he does really well lend himself to that whole joke character thing. Then next up is Dupe, and in all honesty, if you don't know Dupe, you are totally forgiven. He is a joke character in the Marvel Universe. He's a mutant, or he might be from another dimension. Again, they intentionally keep a lot of this stuff vague, but his power set is pretty much whatever it needs to be. He has these crazy... He's gone hand-to-hand with Thor. He's like had pieces of himself broken up and just gotten put back together, so his healing factor is insane as well. His power set is pretty much whatever he needs at the moment. So they could give him projectiles, they could give him like traps that he could set, they could just make him a straight hand-to-hand brawler. He does kind of just levitate wherever he needs to go. He also has psychic powers as far as I can tell, so again, they could take his moveset a million different directions. And one of the funnier things about this guy is his connections to other Marvel characters. For one, he doesn't speak any language that anybody else speaks speaks, but he'll say it and people will just understand him. Like they'll just, okay, yeah, that makes sense, dude. And along with that, they hold him in a very high regard. Characters like Captain America and Wolverine. Captain America even went on saying like, oh yeah, we were experimented on like kind of around the same time. Like I really trust this guy Dupe. Same thing with Wolverine. Wolverine even trusts this guy with missions that he can't get to or doesn't want to go on or doesn't have the time for. So Dupe is like a really solid dude, apparently, like a really cool guy to have in your corner. So I think along with that, the voice lines and everything that he'd have would be really funny. And I think he's pretty much the ideal version of a joke character. He could use, like, again, Toon Force, he could use traps. Again, you could do anything with this guy's moveset. I'd want him as a floating character that could kind of control maybe more of the air than anything else. I'd want him maybe, you know, doing combos in the air, and then once he gets down to the ground, maybe he's not as strong. Maybe he looks for like maybe 1 or 2 hits. But again, I think Dupe really does lend himself to the joke character archetype. Next up is one that I reluctantly put on the list, but again, I collaborate with my brother on a lot of these videos, and he's pretty much in the same camp here. There's a very real possibility that we gotta prep for Gwenpool making it into this game. Marvel has been pushing her more of as the joke fourth wall-breaking character, kind of in Deadpool's stead. Again, I don't really like the whole characterization of her. Her whole power set is pretty much she is a normal person from our world who is transferred to the Marvel universe, as I understand it. She just has a lot of knowledge on how this stuff works. She's pretty much trying to keep her run from getting canceled the entire time. She hops around, she fourth wall breaks, so I think I could see her playing not exactly similar to Deadpool in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but again, maybe bouncing people off of walls or knowing when, you know, they're gonna do a certain thing, so maybe she has a counter and comments on how they always use that move or something like that. But I think an annoying play style where she intentionally tries to annoy her opponent by either keeping them away or doing these annoying moves that kind of stun them for a while, or maybe disabling assists or something along those lines, would be really fitting for her character. Along with that, a comic style panel teleport, maybe where she rips through a comic cover or something along those lines, or like a to be continued thing where she teleports and then she's immediately behind somebody else, would be really cool. But the main reason I think she is going to make it in is honestly because of Jeff the Landshark. In the comic runs, she is the one that adopted Jeff, I believe. She's his main caretaker whenever it's not Deadpool. So I think she would absolutely have Jeff in her moveset if Deadpool doesn't already, and if Jeff doesn't end up being his own character. With Marvel Rivals pretty much shooting Jeff's popularity up by, I don't even know how many percent. I'm not going to put a number on that. I don't know the exact number. I think, honestly, Jeff does have a really good chance of making it in, but if he doesn't, or if they can't put a moveset to him, like have him as his own character, or maybe he's too short of a profile or something along those lines, I think he would absolutely make an appearance in Gwenpool's kit here, and I think that might be her entrance, in all honesty. I think because of Jeff's popularity, I think if they're not able to make a moveset for him, they're going to kind of tack him onto Gwenpool's moveset. And again, I think that would be really fun. I think that'd be really cool to incorporate that. I think that would make her inclusion a lot more bearable, if anything. Again, not that I hate Gwenpool herself, but I think that when it comes to joke characters, I think that people who do the fourth wall breaking thing, it was very entertaining and it was very fun back in the day, but I think it has worn a little thin for a lot of people. It can certainly be written to be funny, but a lot of the time, there are other characters that do this stuff a lot better. I think She-Hulk, for instance, would make a great fourth wall breaking character, really tie back into how she got into that. But again, Gwenpool's whole thing with the joke is the fourth wall breaking stuff, and I think, in all honesty, when it's a main thing for a character, I think it wears out a lot faster. I don't think it's as funny as it normally is perceived to be when that's the whole main thing. Then next up is another one that Marvel Rivals recently popularized, Squirrel Girl. I think a lot of people have eyes on her as well. In the comic, she's got some crazy, and her whole thing is, again, she's pretty much a like metahuman. She's got a little bit of super strength and everything, but the main thing is she can talk to squirrels. She's utilized this to beat characters like Doctor Doom, Galactus, stuff like that. And again, it's intentionally treated as a joke, but she has taken these guys out. So I think a summon style character, kind of a mix between Olimar from Smash Brothers, and there is a Guilty Gear character that my brother let me know about that utilizes these little summons, and I think that would probably be perfect for her moveset. I think something where she summons a squirrel out, maybe throws an acorn or something at them, kind of has them move around, reposition them. Maybe they can, you know, like Tron from Marvel vs. Capcom as well, as she uses little servo bots and everything. I think that'd be really cute to see. Maybe a squirrel stampede, or maybe something where, you know, the squirrel like bounces or ricochets off the walls, or they wait for you to jump in the air and then they do an anti-air or something like that. I think that would be be really interesting and a really fun angle to take her as. I don't think that she should, have too much when she's up in your face. I think her main style of gameplay should be the squirrel summoning and kind of using them as her kit. But again, she can certainly get up close, can do a little bit of damage. She does have a tail and everything, so I think that'd be really cool to utilize in some combos. But again, I think the main thing and the main funny way to play her would be to have her squirrels do a lot of the fighting. So maybe when she launches somebody or hits them with a big hit, anti-air, launches them up, does the aerial combos, it's not her going up there, it's maybe her sending a flying squirrel or something like that. So I think that would just be a really funny way to take the character. And again, she could honestly be put in as a non-joke character, as her own, for all intents and purposes, very kitted out, very serious playstyle character that doesn't utilize the squirrels. But I think as a joke character, she also really fits into the net as well. Then next up, getting into the more obscure, I have Madcap. So one of the main things with Madcap is he is a Deadpool villain. He started off as a different villain in the comics, but his whole thing is he drives people insane with his presence, his voice, and any projectiles he can utilize. Along with that, he has a crazy healing factor. Deadpool's even said that it's better than his own. In the comics, again, as far as significant stuff, that's pretty much it. He was merged with Deadpool for a little bit, was like a second voice in his head. I think he was like the voices in his head as part of a retcon, but I think that got retconned as well. I'm not sure, but Madcap is a really cool character. He does have some pretty interesting stuff he can do. I think, honestly, back to Mortal Kombat 1, there's a character named Havoc who has an insane healing factor, can just regenerate body parts instantly, and he is just a reckless fighter. He'll tackle people, he'll kind of whack them with like bones in his arm. I'm not going to say that Madcap's going to be doing that, because more than likely this game's going to be rated T. He's not going to be blowing body parts off, but I think a very reckless fighter who does have stuff that he can grow back pretty instantly, especially if they stylize it. I think that would be really, really interesting to utilize. He is sort of a non-joke character. He is more of a villain than anything else, but I think Madcap does kind of fit into the whole mold here. He is pretty funny whenever he's not being menacing, but I mean, again, as for the joke character angle, I think maybe something along the lines where, since he does drive people insane, he could maybe have a projectile out, or maybe something that kind of waits for you to summon any assists. And if you do it during that time, maybe the assist ends up hitting you instead, since this whole thing does antagonize people, kind of make them go crazy, just start swinging at people. So I think something along those lines would be really interesting. It doesn't really lend itself to the whole weak angle of the joke character, but I think a character that has stuff like that is a very unique playstyle to utilize. So I think Madcap would be really cool as well. Next up is Hydrobob, and again, this is just the epitome of a joke character. His whole thing is he's a guy who's worked for several villainous organizations. He's worked for AIM, he's worked for, again, bad guys all over the world, as I recall, but he's finally settled on Hydra currently, and he just does a pretty bad job of working with these villainous organizations pretty often. He does most often pop up with Deadpool, as I recall, and he has had some versions where he's been powered up, where he has had more serious powers, but he is just a normal guy that just works with these villainous associations. So I think he could utilize a variety of weapons, maybe things that, again, don't make it into the game, like the Cosmic Cube, or not the Infinity Stones or anything, because I think Thanos has got that, but maybe experimental shield tech, weapons from AIM, things along those lines. And I mean, there's a real possibility that he doesn't get added, since he doesn't have that much variety and doesn't really have any powers. This is kind of the guy I have the least to say about. But since he does appear with Deadpool, I think it would be really funny. There is a move in Marvel vs. Capcom where there's a character named Zero, and he kind of has the super where he activates it, and there's a shadow clone, or whatever you call it, a copy of him that just does the exact same move he does, and you can use it to do some crazy combos, crazy strings. I think it'd be really funny, since Hydrobob usually hangs out with Deadpool. If Deadpool does have a super where he can summon Hydrobob just behind him, and Hydrobob does these very weak versions of Deadpool's attacks, kind of mimicking him, and it won't do, the exact same damage that Deadpool does, but it will stun lock the person, so you can do these crazy combos. So if Hydrobob doesn't make it in as his own character, I think it would be really funny if he did get added as that little secondary thing for Deadpool, kind of like how Gwenpool would get Jeff. I think it'd be funny if Deadpool got Hydrobob. Next up, I have Trapster, or Pacepot Pete. So the whole thing with this guy, he's a Spider-Man villain. So again, fulfilling Spidey villain quota. So that's helping out right there. If we don't get Green Goblin, but we get Pacepot Pete, I'd be very happy with that. And by the way, the whole thing is this guy named himself He's just a normal guy. He just utilizes glue and traps and stuff to kind of fight Spidey. His whole thing is he named himself Pacepot Pete, and I think this has been retconned since, but Spider-Man was pretty much like, hey, that name kind of sucks, dude. Like, I'm going to call you Trapster, that's better. And the guy's like, nah, I think Pacepot Pete's better. Then Spider-Man's like, all right, whatever, I'm calling you Trapster. So he goes by Trapster, also called Pacepot Pete. I think it's been retconned since, so maybe his name was always Trapster. But again, I like that approach for it as well. So obviously he would play as a trapping character, prioritizes slowing enemy players. Maybe he could have something that would slow down the attack speed of assists. So maybe he could lay these little puddles down. And again, this would make him insanely annoying to fight against. But for joke characters, I think sometimes that's a really funny angle to take them at. Maybe you could have it so he has absolutely no way to defend himself when somebody gets in on him. Maybe his whole thing is, again, he just slows, or maybe he could have some crazy assist where he like slows down the enemy player, he like leaves a puddle and just slows down their movement speed, or allows it so they can't dash or something along those lines. Or, you know, maybe when he's in, he could set puddles that slow the attack speed or slow the entire animation of any assists that come in as well. So you could definitely make this guy a very annoying character to play against. But again, I think he does really lend himself well to that whole joke character type angle. I know that I'm listing a lot of moves that sound unique to these guys. There's some interesting effects with assists and how they might play with that stuff. But again, I think just because somebody is a joke character doesn't mean they need to be absolutely terrible. I think you should give them some sort of tools to win, or give them some sort of, you know, something that helps out with their win condition. So I think something like that isn't out of left field, or isn't too crazy either. Then lastly, I have a character named Slapstick, who is essentially just a living cartoon as he's been described in the Marvel Universe. His whole thing is his body's made of unstable molecules. There's a weird convoluted origin story where he follows some guys into a funhouse mirror, and Doctor Strange and Silver Surfer and Spider-Man are there, but essentially he gets Toon Force. It's not as strong as normal Toon Force. It's not like he can't be killed, but he does have insane durability. I think it's almost on the same level as Deadpool, if not a little bit better. And again, I hate to use Deadpool as the basis, but again, his healing factor is the one people are most familiar with besides Wolverine, I think. But Slapstick is a really cool character, and he could absolutely play into that whole thing with Toon Force. He could bring out mallets, he could bring out, you know, water balloons and kind of use it. The guy doesn't feel pain, so I think that's not the main play style they should focus on. I think they should focus on his whole cartoon thing, but that's definitely something they can use too. So I think it'd be really funny if he did hit players with phrases like bam, pow, kind of like how, again, Phoenix Wright in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, once he does get to the right state, he does have this thing where, you know, he whips out like this objection thing. It's like a big font, it's a big speech bubble, and that has a hitbox. I think it'd be really funny if Slapstick did something similar with the, you know, phrases you see in comic books whenever you get hit, like pow, bam, bam, things along those lines, you know. And then along with that, he does have hammer space, and I forget when they started calling it this, but hammer space essentially means you have infinite pockets, like how Daffy Duck can just whip out a mallet from nowhere in his pocket. He doesn't even have pockets, but Slapstick has things like that too. So they could absolutely whip out things like the ultimate nullifier, which is essentially just a delete everything gun that the Fantastic Four usually hold on to. I think it'd be really funny if they did include stuff like that. So things along those lines would be really cool. I think maybe like having a circus cannon that he shoots himself out of for mobility would also be really fun. Maybe as a launching animation, whenever he gets a big hit, he could just put himself in a cannon and then shoot himself up into the air. Again, I think he doesn't really need to lean too far into the whole weak joke character angle. I think his whole personality does help him play as that joke character. So I think Slapstick would also be a really cool option as well. But I mean, with that being said, those are just a few characters I wanted to bring to the table. I think that was, what, 8 total? So yeah, I mean, not too long. Video didn't end up running too long. But I mean, aside from that, if you guys have any other joke characters, you guys let me know. I thought of some others like Big Wheel also, but I think he might be a little bit too big to fit into the game. But again, if you guys got any other joke characters, by all means, let me know in the comments below. But I'm probably going to keep doing Tōkon videos. Along with that, I am really excited to look at that new Invincible game, so I'll probably have a video coming out for that later this week as well. But other than that, thank you guys so much. Like, the video got so much love. If you guys are liking this content, feel free to subscribe, like, whatever helps out the video. Otherwise, peace.